Welcome back to Gold Derby. I'm Christopher Rosen. I'm joined by Joyce Singh. Joyce, we're back again, and we're talking about the limited series race. It's so much fun. Beef.
Actually exciting to talk about now.
Yeah.
I was like, what are we gonna say about this? But then now beef is here.
Immediately put in first place.
Same, obviously. So
And Stephen and Yeun in first place as well.
I was like, sorry to Evan. Love my eternal Zabes, but yeah.
So yeah, like we're saying, yesterday the big headline from Variety, Joyce, Beef is going to compete at the Emmys as a limited series, which we had kind of speculated about because it feels like a limited series.
Yeah, we talked about this, what, like 4 weeks ago? When
Yes.
I feel like we talk about beef every week, but after we both watched the screeners, we were like, it ends on a perfect note. We don't need a second season. We don't need more.
Right.
This is the problem. Like, people always want more. No, let things end.
Less. Jesse
Yeah.
Armstrong is right on the money. Let
Yeah.
things end. Just end it. End it. It's so much
Yeah.
better to end.
We don't need revivals or reboots or whatever. Just end it. And yeah, the way beef ends this season is like, this would be a great limited series. But the thing is, like, everyone involved, like Netflix and all the creatives, they've been very vague about its categorization just in general. Because, like, if you recall, something like Big Little Lies and The White Lotus, they were always marketed as a limited series.
Right.
And then they were hits and they eventually were renewed and came back. But with Beef, it was just like this new Netflix show, this like
Yes.
black comedy or whatever. But they never explicitly called it a limited series or anything.
No. I wonder how much I'm just speculating here. I wonder how much of this is also the fact that the entire creative team is going to be making a Marvel movie that's coming out in like 2
Except
years.
for Ali Wong, who's on tour.
Ali Wong is the only one who's not involved, but it's Steven and the showrunner and the main director, and I think many of the craft people involved are all making Thunderbolts. And so I'm like, maybe they just don't have time to even think about a second season, and by the time they would, it's going to be like 3 or 4 years from now.
Yeah, and it would also work anthology, which has also been discussed. And I know like Lee Sung-jin, the showrunner, he talked to Rolling Stone last week and was asked about a second season. He basically said like, oh, I have ideas for like a second or third season in my head, like if we could renew it or whatever. But you know, like that doesn't mean he needs to do them, you know.
Right.
So
Right.
it's like it hasn't been renewed yet. So
Also, they were still going with the idea that maybe it was a series, not a limited series, like an ongoing
right.
series.
Yeah. And again, it could be an anthology. So he
Sure.
could have a second and third season as an anthology series. But please don't bring anyone back. Don't pull a White Lotus.
Yeah, don't need that.
No.
Though I mean, if they were going to do a second I mean, I guess I would say, like, I feel like you don't need to do any more with the Stephen and Allie characters.
Yeah, you don't need, just leave them alone. That was a great ending
And
for
so if we brought back somebody else, like, there are other characters on the show who I'd be interested in seeing a little of. But I'm also like,
right. But then that also wouldn't, that would just be more of a spin-off, not
right,
an anthology
right,
following a different
true.
set of characters. So yeah.
So limited series, right? So that's it. And then they I don't think we could talk about it much, but they sent out the White House plumber screeners finally.
I
So
did. I started watching them last night. Today's Wednesday. So
right.
yeah.
So that sounds like it'll be fun. And we had it
It
in
was.
there.
It was very, obviously a satire. So laughed a lot in the first episode.
Lots of laughs.
Yeah, and a lot of accents. A lot of wigs too.
Looks like a great wig show.
American-esque. Yeah.
This has
So
been like a really just not a great category until I feel like this week.
yeah, beef injected a lot of excitement.
Yes, it did. Uh so I put beef first, obviously, and I have White House plumbers in second. I went right up. I moved off Fleischman is in trouble, Joyce. I feel like it is in trouble. No one's talking about it except for me. And
Well, because of beef, I was finally able to drop Obi-Wan. As you know, I had it in my sixth slot, but I still think this will end up being 5 slots, even though we can predict 6 here. But I think it'll be 5.
you're gonna laugh in my face. Do you want to know what I put in the sixth slot?
Obi-Wan.
Extrapolations, my new
Oh
favorite
yeah,
Apple
you're
TV drama.
another Chris special here. Chris's 3 stages of watching a show.
It's so
It's like
good.
he starts watching a pilot and it's like a minute in, he's like, this is not great. And then like an hour later, he's like, still not great. And then when he's almost done with the show, he's like, best show ever, new favorite show, Emmys all the way. And this is what happened with extrapolations.
Exactly what happened with extrapolations. I'm like, man, the show is really good. It's super entertaining. Scott C. Burns and the Soderbergh crew, Greg Jacobs and stuff. Let's go. I'm in. I'm loving this. I think it's really good.
You also did this last week with another Apple limited series.
Yes, The Last Thing He
The
Told
last
Me.
thing he told me. Yes.
Which I did put Jennifer Garner in my best actress field. Loving that show too. People, I feel like a lot of people I talk to, anybody in the media, Joyce, who I spoke to about Last Thing He Told Me, which premieres, I guess, this week, right?
Yes, the 14th. So
everyone was like, oh, I thought it was really slow and the first episodes weren't great. And I'm like, it rules. And I guess the first episodes weren't that great, but I'm like, it's also their 35 minutes. So it's like awesome.
Yeah, I love the show purely because there are 4 episodes under 40 minutes. The finale is 37 minutes. I'm like, this is my jam. And the pacing is so good. Like the longest episode is the first episode, and it's just like 47 minutes or something.
Maybe,
it's
yeah.
not that long.
No, I loved it. It is it's obviously based on the book by Laura,
which you have not read. So it's I have read the book. It's very faithful to the book, except for like a couple extra scenes, which is not, weird for an adaptation.
It reminded me of a vintage John Grisham legal thriller from the 90s. I just absolutely loved it. I was like, this is
I mean, that's the vibe of the book, basically. Yeah. So, but I know some book readers were kind of felt like deflated by the climax reveal, whatever you want to call it. But it's not, I mean, if like the themes of the book are pretty clear when you're reading and even when you're watching it, that I don't think anything that unfolds, if you don't know what happens, is like all that surprising.
That was why I compared to John Grisham, because it feels like it's absolutely like the client and the firm, basically. It's like those resolutions like smashed together, and then Jennifer Garner is doing like just very solid acting, and
Jennifer's great. And when I was watching it the whole time, I was like, I miss her on TV. Like, she was so great on Alias. We have an Alias reunion, of course, with Victor Garber, Spy Daddy.
Very brief.
Yeah, but it's just like in the book, it like that's all that character was there for.
Yeah.
So just that one episode in the show as well. Yeah, and Gabby Rice is really great too at playing another teenager. She was in Mayor of Easttown, so
she's really good on
also
it.
Also in the Spider-Man films too, as Betty.
Yeah. And I know her from Nice Guys, which is a great
underrated very
film. Good. Yeah. It's just a really entertaining show. I was just like,
yeah, it's totally solid. And I said this to you and other people too, but I was like, I feel like if this were on HBO, it would be like pretty big or just like a solid hit. Because I can't really gauge like what people are tuning into or checking out on Apple. Really.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, if it was on HBO, they would be like from the makers of Big Little Lies, and they do all this stuff, and then you'd be like, oh yeah, let's watch it, basically.
It's a Reese book pick. So
yeah. So I don't have that in, though. I do have extrapolations in the other Apple show, though I could see putting Last Thing He Told Me in. I just think that all the reviews are like, it's definitely a show that's for the fans more than the critics. I feel like the audience scores for it will be solid compared to the critic scores.
I think if you like the book, you'll like the show.
Yeah.
It's very faithful adaptation, and because the episodes are so short, it moves at such a quick pace, and you're just along for the ride, really, right. And you never feel like it's dragging.
No.
And then there's like certain, I think, is it like every episode? I guess maybe it's like it sort of ends on a cliffhanger, so you want to watch. Sort of,
you definitely want to watch
because they're like they're chasing leads, or
a lot of leads, a lot of like Googling.
A lot of Googling, same in the book as well. Although I think they do more in the show too, but yeah.
And yet still not enough Googling. That was one of my takes. I was like, maybe just look this person up. A lot of them
they're like not great stalkers.
Oh,
so it kind of reminds me of Inventing Anna, when like Anna Klumsky or Jeff Perry was better at Instagram stalking than Anna Klumsky. Yes. I'm like, girl.
Yeah. So I don't have it in. Long story short, I feel like I have a lot of shows in my limited series list that you definitely don't, because I have Daisy Jones and Extrapolations and Fleischman. Do you have any of those?
So I have Beef, White House Plumbers, Love and Death, Monster, Fleischman, and I have Blackbird in the sixth slot that I feel like will not exist in reality come July 12th.
Now, you've watched Love and Death, right? I have not watched it.
Yes, I have watched it.
You think
I
it's
can't
gonna
really
get
talk
in?
about it. I don't. I think the embargo's next week.
I think so too. You think it'll get in though?
I don't really know if it'll get in, honestly, because like it's I think it's good. But it just depends on like what they're watching.
Right.
So
yeah, a lot of, so now that really kind of like opens up the field to having Beef in there. But I think Beef could win because I think like we're gonna have so Monster.
I also think that's kind of why they want to go limited too, not just because of scheduling things, but it's like they saw an opening, a gaping hole in limited.
Yes. And
even though like Monster is a Netflix show too.
Yes, a Monster is a Netflix show, but it also, we kind of like said, it felt like it's a default front runner there. Not a lot of passion
also
for it.
Controversial,
but I don't know if they care about that. And obviously incredibly popular because it was like so widely seen. But also like not a show. I think like Beef, I feel like has like the elitist stamp of approval that maybe the Academy would enjoy.
For sure. Yeah. It's also such a film Twitter show too. Love when film Twitter TVs and Emmys. And it's an A24 product, so it's just completely up their alley, especially with the talent involved too.
So. It's like the most basic film Twitter pick.
Yes.
So that's great. Do you want to do limited?
Well, what is your? So you have you named like 4 of your shows. So what's your 6? Even though it should be 5.
So I have 6. I have Beef, White House Plumbers, Fleischman, Monster, Daisy Jones, and Extrapolations. And if I went in the end, I might throw in the last thing you told me over Extrapolations. I feel like Blackbird I took out because I was like,
I don't trust that Blackbird. That's why I have it in the invisible 6th slot.
And I also just feel like based on their output and what they're like excited about, I don't know how much of a priority it is for Apple because they have like the shinier new stuff that's happening right now, and Blackbird could be more of an acting play for them overall than a show play.
Yeah, it could still win supporting actor.
Yes,
so
definitely. And then George and Tammy is in our odds would be like another pick, but again, not convinced that has the juice to go through.
Same.
And then Love and Death you have in, which I thought of having in place of Extrapolations, but I went with my new fave because I love shiny new things. And then everything else of the ones that we didn't mention, the only one I could see maybe getting in is like Swarm. I thought.
I feel like that's its best bet is probably still Dominique.
Yeah. And then also like Dead Ringers might also be just for Rachel Weisz, but I've heard decent things about that as well.
So, I feel like that I have not watched that yet, but I feel like it could be like too cerebral, maybe.
So for TV movie, I mean, we could just do this quick because we kind of maybe have to factor these people into the acting races. I have Weird, Fire Island, Prey, Dolly Parton's Mountain Christmas, and then Reality. I put in there, Joyce. My new fave. Back to Reality.
I have Weird, Prey, Hocus Pocus 2, Reno 911, It's a Wonderful Heist, and Dolly Parton's Mountain Magic Christmas.
Sure. That's great.
I don't know what else you want to say.
Nothing. We're just gonna go to the acting side now. So for actress, I don't know what to do here because now I feel like there's like a million really strong contenders here.
There's a lot of options.
So I have Jessica Chastain. These are all wrong. I'm just gonna go right on the limb and just say like none of these are probably gonna get nominated, and like I'll probably change this within a day. But I have Jessica Chastain, Riley Keough for Daisy Jones, Dominique Fishback for Swarm, Ali Wong for Beef, Sydney Sweeney for Reality, and then I'll put Elizabeth Olsen in instead of Jennifer Garner for Love and Death. But I really wanted to put
you had Jen in there for what, 4 days?
Yeah, I really wanted to put I did want to really put Rachel Weisz in because I just think like that could be like the play for that show. But
how many Amazon women are you going to have?
That was the problem. So I took her out. She would be my 3rd Amazon.
Amazon has 4 ladies.
Yes, because I don't even have Emily Blunt for the English, and she's second in the odds. And
I ended up dropping Emily.
Yeah.
So SAG nom and all. So I have Elizabeth Olsen.
Yeah.
Ali Wong, Jessica Chastain. Lizzie Kaplan, your fave, who I'm also not sure about at all, but I
I
just kept her there.
I took her out because you know what? If it happens, I'd be thrilled, but I don't need to put her in and then have it not happen. So
Um, and then Dominique, and then Catherine Hahn for Tiny Beautiful Things.
sure.
Another short show that I greatly enjoyed because I don't think I would have enjoyed it had it gone even 10 minutes longer in any episode.
Yeah. Not a bad pick. That's like you said, there's a lot of like so I thought Catherine Hahn, I thought like I said, Rachel Weisz. I think you can make a case for Jennifer Garner. She's really good on it, and people like her. And I think people watch the show. Uh I don't know. It is a tough category. So you have who do you have winning then? Elizabeth Olsen
Yes.
instead of Jessica Chastain.
I never had Jess in first, or maybe I did until like Lizzie came along.
Right.
So I just don't really know. I mean, obviously, Love and Death isn't out yet, but I don't know, even with her SAG win, if Jess can go all the way.
One of the things I always try to figure out with the Emmys is like we said, like in the past, it has seemed that debuting earlier maybe helps, right? Because people have there's too much new stuff coming, and they are just going to default stuff they've seen before. So we saw that last year with maybe White Lotus or whatever. But at the same time, I'm like, does the new stuff end up being something shiny and enjoyable to people where they're going to forget about maybe the fringe or the non-major shows? Like George and Tammy was a solid show, but I don't think a lot of people would call it their
Well,
favorite.
yeah, because you if you premiere early too, you also need to be embraced and seen. And I don't
Right.
know if uh George and Tammy really hit the mark there outside of
Same.
her. So
And also, we've seen in the past Showtime not always the strongest swimmer.
no. So I think she can get in here. She didn't get in last year for Scenes from a Marriage, which is also an early fall premiere.
Yes. But
And
I would say not a great show. I think George and Tammy's a better show and had better reviews.
um yeah, well they nominated Oscar Isaac for Scenes from a Marriage and not her.
Right.
So what if they do it again? What if they go Michael Shannon and not her?
I don't think they will, but I don't have him
I think
in.
she can get in here. So but I don't know if she can go all the way. And it kind of reminds me a little bit of The Good Lord Bird and people predicting Ethan Hawke for forever. And then they
Yes.
just did not care about it at all. He didn't have the SAG win, obviously,
Right.
but
It, I
yeah.
still think it'll get in, but that's why I don't have it in for series. I think she'll get in because I think
Yeah,
like
I think if she like her strength pulls another nomination, I think it would be for Michael and not for series.
yeah. Uh, but let's go to actor then. I don't have Michael at all. I have Steven for Beef right at the top, shot right to the top. Couldn't wait to predict him to win, and I think he really could win. Such a good performance, and like you had said months ago or a month ago, it seems nice that Steven Yeun Emmy winner is the thing people probably want.
Yeah. Well, at the time I said Emmy nominee because we were still under the
True,
assumption of it going comedy.
right?
Yeah. So, but yeah, Emmy winner, Stephen
Love
Yeun,
it.
no issues either. So,
None, and he's great. He's legitimately great on the show. I think it's like he's of the two of them. I think he's the performance I was most impressed by. But I mean, Ali Wong is also good.
I was impressed by Ali. I like them both, and yeah, I don't know. I can see them both winning. I put Ali in second.
Wow.
So.
Then I have Evan Peters for Monster, Taron Egerton for Blackbird, Woody for White House Plumbers, Daniel Radcliffe for Weird, and Justin Theroux for White House Plumbers.
I have Steven, Evan, Taryn, Justin, Woody, and Jesse Plemons
So I was
for
going to ask
Love
you about
and Death.
Jesse Plemons because I wanted to put him in, but I went with Daniel because like people liked him as Weird Al. But you think Jesse Plemons still get
I've
in?
never had Daniel in, even though I like that performance a lot, but I feel like, like TV movies are not really in vogue.
True.
And it's not like even a serious movie like The Survivor last year and Ben Foster, he was heavily predicted last year.
This guy.
And they were just like hard pass.
So then I'm gonna just switch right now to Jesse Plemons. Thank
I mean,
you.
you don't need to put Jesse. You can put someone else.
No, I was gonna put Jesse. I wanted to put Jesse in, but I haven't watched it yet. So I was like, let me see what Joyce is thinking, as usual. And there we go.
I'll just say, that show is very much Elizabeth Olsen's show.
Yes. Well, it makes sense. I mean, this seems like a nice category now. I'm kind of into this. I like these actors and these performances.
This is very easy to me because I just put Steven in first, and then I had Steve Carell before.
Yeah,
no
same.
offense to him, but I just dropped him.
Same. Yeah. For supporting actress in a movie limited series, I've got Niecy Nash-Betts for Monster, Claire Danes for Fleischman, Lena Headey for White House Plumbers, Cherry Jones still for 5 Days of Memorial, Maria Bello for Beef as the Jamie Lee Curtis Memorial nomination from an A24 movie, and then a show, and then Merritt Weaver for Tiny Beautiful Things.
I have Claire, Niecy, Lena, Merritt, Lily Rabe for Love and Death. And I also just slotted Maria Bello in there, even though I preferred Ashley Park and Patty Yasutaki, but we cannot predict either of them. So
no,
just hold the spot there.
Yeah, I mean,
no offense to Maria Bello, who has an iconic scene in the penultimate episode.
And also, she's got like the goof. I mean, she literally does have the goofy, like Jamie Lee Curtis part where she's just playing full on comedy the whole time, basically, right? Like she's not very serious in the show.
No, I mean, like it's a very great send up of that type of person.
Yeah. She's like Gwyneth Paltrow.
Yeah. So Forsters is the new Goop.
Yes, I love Lily Rabe. I was thinking of her also, but I still haven't watched it. So maybe once I watch it, I'll put her in. Everything else here feels fine. So you have Claire Danes winning for her, obviously knockout episode of Fleischman. I put Niecy Nash up there because I think people really like her, and I think they like that.
They do.
Performance.
I was joking with this about Niecy, how she has 3 nominations that were not widely predicted. Like she was kind of a surprise nominee, and she got those nominations. And now she's widely predicted to win. And I'm like, it'll be so funny if when she's heavily predicted and she misses.
I think she'll make it, and I think she could win very easily. It's one of those things where you're like, we're a long way from having to predict Emmy winners, Joyce. Months, as it turns out. But I would say like it's something where you're just like, oh, that's something people would want to see. I think they want to see her win an Emmy and like give a speech.
Yeah, sure. And also a lot of it also depends on how well all of these shows do overall in general, like nominations wise, because you could say, Niecy is obviously going to win now, but what if Monster flops? What if they don't care about Monster?
True. Yeah, maybe somebody else. But I'm like, I also think Fleischman might flop because like
Fleischman, I don't really know how it will do, but I think the restricted ballot helps someone like Claire.
Yeah, true. And then limited supporting actor, I have Paul Walter Hauser for Blackbird, Richard Jenkins for Monster, Domhnall Gleeson for The Patient, Ray Liotta for Blackbird, Murray Barlow for Chippendales, and Young Mazzino for Beef. But I would also predict a bunch of other Beef people if I could, including David Chu, who I loved on
it. Yeah, David and Joseph Lee. I also put Young in.
Let's go. He's great.
I put him in third. So I have like a PWH, Richard and Young, and Domhnall, Ray, and Murray for Welcome to Chippendales. And
feels like a placeholder.
Like he won last year, and I was like, I mean, I already had him in there. The person I dropped was Greg Kinnear for Blackbird, right? Because I had triple Blackbird.
Yeah, I don't know. I was like, anybody else here you think would make it in?
I don't really know. I mean, you did have a double Dom for a hot second.
I did, but I took him out for Young. The second Dom I took out for Young Mazzino because I just think he's great. And Paul is like his character's Paul, right? I forget the names of the characters.
Yes.
He's a great character and like has really complex stuff and like as is revealed throughout the season. I just think it's like a really good performance. And he's the only supporting actor who really has like significant material with both lead actors. So it feels like a no-brainer that he would kind of get in.
yeah, he's also someone, especially if like, you know, we have no evidence of this, but if like Beef is not widely watched, which you don't really have any reason to think because it's also on Netflix, you know, the top streamer, but like he's also someone who would be helped by the restricted ballot,
Yes.
like a new face, sort of, and as this standout pivotal supporting character too.
Now, do you think? So we can't predict it, but let's just talk about this in general. As maybe we will someday we'll be able to. Do you think it could support multiple supporting actor or actress nominations beyond the two people we've just mentioned, Maria Bello and Young Mazino?
Yeah, if they love it, sure. It's also like, even though with Beef, you know, penetrating limited, uh it's still the categories overall aren't super strong still. Like there's still a lot of, you know, open slots that you could see people we haven't even named get nominated, you know? So, and especially if they're not watching a lot of shows, like even with the restricted ballot, they might still just be checking off like two or three people from the same show that they liked, or just remember watching, or just watch last.
Right.
Like, I don't think we'll have like a White Lotus situation where we have five nominees, but I can see a show getting two or three.
I think that's fair. And that's limited choice. That's it.
Yeah. So thank you to Beef.
Really great. I'm so psyched that it's in
I feel
there.
like I feel like we're like dunking on the other shows and we're not. It's like it's just nothing feels very robust.
Yeah, I mean, I think White House Plumbers would have been like before Beef. I'd moved White House Plumbers up. It just felt like maybe we were spoiled in years past because we've had like a lot of major limited series, and there was like a move towards like those kind of shows. And then for whatever reason this year, not as many of those, right? Like there was like, I mean, like we've had like Queen's Gambit and, you know, Mayor of Easttown and all these different major significant cultural events that have been limited
It's just a
series.
weak category this year. It was
Yeah.
kind of weak last year too. We just had a juggernaut in the White Lotus,
Yeah.
and limited. So, um, which like we knew was winning. Um, but yeah, not the case this year. Like if White Lotus were still in limited, if Jennifer Coolidge were not in the second season, it would still be in limited and it would win again.
It would steamroll. It would
Yeah.
win, sweep almost all the categories, let's say.
Yeah, it would kind of be like a mirror of last year where we'll just have different lead winners because everyone else is in supporting. So
Right. Uh, Let me see. We've talked about a bunch of stuff there. We have a bunch of emails, Joyce. But I wanted to talk about Succession, obviously, as well. But we have one here about Beef that I thought we could talk about since we're still talking about it. It's from our old pal David.
oh,
This is David L, not David Grammer, I believe.
Grammar David.
Grammer David will show up also today. But this is
Wow,
David
double
L.
David.
We have a lot of Davids, a lot of our regular faves emailing. You can email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. Here's the question. Hey, it's David L. I just watched all the show Beef over the weekend. It's literally the funniest show I've seen this year. I'm telling all my friends to go watch it. And it also has the best song choices for the end credits in the history of TV.
Like we said.
My question is, do you think Beef could get more than just nominations for Steven and Allie, which we just discussed? Because I'm hope dicking that young Mazzino gets nominated for playing Paul because he rules. Good job, David. That's me interjecting. But here's the question for us now, Joyce. What is your favorite song that they used at the end of each episode?
I mean, I think we know your answer.
But Machine Head from Bush. That
Because
rules.
that was for the basketball game too,
Yes,
right?
it's
Yeah.
so good. It's so good.
I mean, I hate to be basic, but the reason at the end of the first episode, that was just so perfect and just a great like microcosm of the whole thesis of the show and their relationship. And the lyrics like are literally telling you like their dynamic because like these two people are depressed and frustrated with their lives. They feel like they're caged bird motif throughout the show, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And they always have to put on a front, whether with like their husband or their parents or whoever, and acting like everything's fine. But like they hate each other, these two, and they don't need to pretend. They have a reason to start anew, and the reason is you. And it's just hysterical.
It's so good. I mean, there's so many good music cues. He is Steven singing Incubus, obviously, is great. That
Yeah,
was in the end of the
Drive.
episode.
Yeah. I also love the people who discovered that Stephen Yeun can sing.
Yes.
So yeah, he used to post videos of him singing, like way back when.
It just is like the best music. I was like, it's definitely a show made for people who went to college in like the late 90s
It's
or
like
2000s.
it's like extra millennial. So I really appreciated it. I loved obviously opening with Liquid Dreams. Like just Allie's music tastes in general, because then later you hear Genie in a Bottle in her car.
Yes.
I love this so much. Like Girl Was Me.
Really, really good. Loved it so much.
Great. And then they use Cornflake Girl at the end of one episode too, which is a nice touch.
Yes.
Yeah. But it should win music supervision.
It absolutely should win music supervision. I thought it's just so it's so good. It's really good.
No, like I said, like I would stop the next episode from loading when I was watching the screeners, just so I could watch the full credits and hear the songs.
Yeah, it's like incredible. It's like a very well put together show, I feel.
Yeah. Oh, and then when they use Summer Only We Know for the fire.
Really good.
Yeah.
That was a jam.
Yeah.
It was a real jam. You can email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. We had another one here, Joyce, about the restricted ballot, which we were just talking about, that I wanted to read because then we could segue into our beloved Succession and just talk about the acting races in the drama categories as well. But this was from Riley, longtime viewer, first-time writer. Really enjoy your takes and perspective and Joyce's relentless roasting of Chris. My first question is for Joyce. Do you record all the Slugfest on the same couch, or is that a Zoom background? I feel like I've never seen the pillows move since I began watching, and it's driving me crazy.
This is my Twin Peaks log pillow.
Yes.
Remember Twin Peaks: The Return?
Yes.
Yeah, so at TCA, Showtime gave these out.
Mm-hmm.
And then I had to expand my suitcase to bring it back.
Mm-hmm.
So,
wow.
Yeah.
I got to say, that's been back there. Riley's right. It's been back there for so long. I'm shocked at how big it is now that you've pulled it forward. I was like, there's no way it's that big, but it's like really big.
So fun. You get like hug it when you watch TV and stuff. So I talked to your fave, Florencia Martin.
Sure.
Well, I talked to her for Licorice Pizza, but she also worked on Twin Peaks: The Return. So before we started our interview, she was like, "Oh my God, is that the Twin Peaks log pillow?" I was like, "Yes." And we were talking about it. She's like, "She didn't get one." I was like, "You got to hit Showtime up. Like, what's the deal?"
Amazing. It's so much bigger than I thought, Joyce. I'm not even kidding. It's huge.
So I had to expand my suit. I had to leave stuff. I didn't leave anything I brought there behind, but I could not bring other stuff back with me.
Right.
Because of this thing. And this is also real too. So
there you go. So it's not a Zoom background, Riley.
Yeah.
Now he actually has a question. It's about the restricted ballot, which we were just talking about for someone like Young Mazzino, who would probably benefit from that. How this will affect the nominations. You both seem very confident in 3 or even 4 of the Succession actors getting into supporting actor, despite the unlimited ballot being gone. But I have a hard time seeing it personally. Now, Riley sent this before Sunday night, so see if he changes his tune with the latest episode. But while Emmy voters do love the show, it couldn't even get 4 nominations on the unlimited ballot. I'm perhaps giving Emmy voters too much credit. I think most will be conservative with the amount of nominations they put on their ballots. With Alan Ruck supposedly having much juicy material this season and Alexander Skarsgård possibly moving up from guest, I find it hard to imagine that voters will be able to come to a consensus come nomination morning, and we may end up with just Matthew McFadden and Kieran Culkin getting in, and Ruck and Nicholas Braun canceling each other out. Maybe I'm completely off base here, but I think the removal of the unlimited ballot will have a bigger impact than some are expecting. What do you think, Joyce?
I have, or if you're talking about a supporting actor,
yes,
I have 4 because I've been hope dictating eldest son Alan Ruck even before his double whammy episodes, the 2nd and 3rd episodes aired.
Right.
But I think realistically, a show can still pull like 3 nominations, because so the last time we had this same exact system was 2016. And Game of Thrones had, I think it was 3 in supporting actress. So like Succession can totally do that. Like I think Kieran and Matthew are locked, and then it could be Nick again. It could be Alan. Maybe Ace Cars if he is ineligible for guest.
So
maybe Brian Cox if they run him there.
That was another question we have coming up. That would be, I guess we could do part 2 of this. Is Grammar David wrote in and wrote, since Logan, I guess we'll spoil Succession here, but I mean, give me a break. It's been headlines all over the internet.
If something has aired, you can talk about it.
So Logan Roy, Joyce, a spoiler alert here for people who watch Succession, died in the last episode of Succession with 7 episodes remaining in the series. An incredible moment. Since he took his last breath in episode 3, Grammar David writes, could Brian Cox win his Emmy for Succession as a drama guest actor next year? Or even supporting actor?
And if he submitted there.
I don't think he's going to submit in either. I think he's going to still stay in lead.
It'll be such a flex, such a Logan Roy thing to do, to stay in lead with 2 1/8 episodes.
And I got to say, I think he could win with the 2 episodes. He was so good in the first 2 episodes.
So when I updated this morning, I was like, because I've had Brian in first, and I was like, what if I just keep him in there?
So I moved him down. I put Jeremy Strong.
I did. I put Jeremy first, but
I kind of put him in first, only predicting where I think the rest of the season will go. It seems like we have set up now a massive arc for Kendall. It feels like, especially how the episode ended on him and like how he acted in the wake of Logan's death. Felt like we're really getting back to the basics of the show, which is Jeremy.
Well, we can do a funeral off the rack, Reagan's with tweaks.
Great. So. I have 4 actors in for Succession. I have Kieran Matthew McFadden. I have Alan Ruck, the eldest son, and I have Alexander Skarsgård over Nicholas Braun, because I just feel like Nicholas Braun has not had a lot to do this season.
He hasn't, but I don't think that really matters.
I guess if there's like a goofy kind of Tom Greg moments coming up, that could make it work. He was obviously great in the scene with Carrie. But I was just like, Skarsgård seems like he has so much material with the other kids based on the trailer that I'm like, if he's in it and eligible, which he feels like he would be, because I think they're going to have him.
He's already been in 1. He's been in 2. So he's, he could max out of guest. Right. So like, there's no, like the only rule is that you can't be in guest if you're in 50% or more of the episodes. Like you can, once you're ineligible for that, you can submit anywhere, lead or supporting.
So he needs to be in 4 of the final 7.
To be in supporting.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he's obviously in the next one.
5, he has to be in supporting. So he's already been in 1.
Right. And he seems like obviously he'll be in the next one at the very least. And
there's a whole episode of Norway.
So that would be another one.
Oh.
And then if he's just done like a phone call or something in the others, then he's fine.
I mean, literally the second one, he was just on a phone call.
Right. So he doesn't need much to get in, basically. I have him in the bottom of that race, just because I'm like, I think he could get in. I
also think the difference between, like, let's say last season with Succession and right now is that this is the last season. And it was a surprise, I guess, to some fans or a lot of fans who were not ready for this to be the last season. And then, with everything in this 3rd episode, I think it just hit a new crescendo. And I feel like this is that, like, Connor's wedding is the type of episode where it just kind of almost like encourages voters to go all in on a show, like if they already love it. Like there are so many reactions from famous people about the episode.
And my take again, I think Alan Ruck could get in because he's like really good.
He should have gone in last year.
He could have gotten in last year.
Who are you guys? Come on.
This year is like I think he's leveled up and they've given him more to do, I think, which is good.
Yeah, like he already had the 2nd episode and then he was great in Connor's wedding.
Yes.
Too. So
and he's obviously got a lot of material again coming up with the election, Joyce.
Yes. Still, do you think he'll pull more than 1%? Do we have like some sympathy vote there?
I have no idea. I have no idea what happens the rest of the season. I was reading something, and hard to know what's real and what's not, but somebody was saying every episode is like one day and like this whole season is
do you listen to the official podcast?
No.
So I listened to it. So after this episode, so Brian was on, so he was talking about it. because like they asked like, oh, when did you find out? And he was like, oh, he told me. And I was like, well, do I still get paid for every episode? And he was like, yes. So he was like joking, haha. And then he was like, oh, I just didn't think it would be like so early in the season. But you know, it kind of makes sense. And then he said that the season, every episode takes place, it's like 24, every episode takes place over a day.
Wow.
Not, I don't think it necessarily means consecutive 10 days, but
Okay.
just that one episode covers one day.
Okay. That was what I was reading. It sounded like somebody was saying the way that was telephoned through the internet was like it's a take place over just
I mean, I would have to go back to listen to
10
his
consecutive
wording,
days.
but he,
It makes
what I
no
took from it was that every episode just covers one day, which
that makes more sense. It makes no sense that it would be 10 consecutive days based on the timing.
right, especially if you think about between 1 and 2, because like
Right.
Shiv flew back to New York and they had that thing at the end of 1, and then 2 she's back with not Connor, Kieran or Roman and Kendall watching Carrie's ATN audition tape.
Correct.
So I don't know if that's like I don't think those are consecutive days. I think it's just 2 is just a completely separate day. But then 3 is obviously the next day because they had the rehearsal dinner and they were talking about tomorrow, the wedding.
Right.
Yeah.
We were talking about this before, we didn't talk about it in real life. When did you realize Logan was going to die? Because I knew before the episode, but not because I was spoiled, just because I figured it out.
Same. I figured it out too, but then I had confirmation.
Okay. So when did you figure it out?
I mean, I'm sure you were too, but I was definitely one of, like a lot of people, someone who thought that he would die before the show was over.
Absolutely.
Right. Like that's just something like 99% of viewers figure would happen at some point.
Has to happen.
Has to happen, right? But then, so when they were filming the season last year, there was a scoop that someone dies on the show. This is before they filmed the funeral scenes, but there was a scoop that someone dies on an airplane.
Okay.
This person saw like the body bag, the airport scene or whatever. And then they filmed the funeral scenes in January,
yes,
outdoors. And as we now know, Brian Cox filmed decoy scenes to throw people off the scent.
Yes.
So there was, a lot of pickup on that, a lot of pap photos, fan videos on Twitter, because they were filming there for like days. And so it was like, who died? So then, but like, even then I was like, that this could just be a fake out, that it could still be Logan dying.
Right.
But sure, he's there, whatever. And then when it was announced it was the final season, and then the way all of them, like Jesse and the actors, have talked about it and how it's like, it could continue or not. And we chose not. And that was also something throughout the years that just fans in general have talked about with the show, that Logan could die mid-run of the series, and then the show could continue for a season or 2 without him, with whoever the new CEO is, right? So it's like, okay, cool. And then HBO was super secretive.
Yes.
With these episodes and screeners. So then I was like, he's dying.
So
and then I confirmed it with my friend. So I was like, Logan dies, right? And she was like, yeah. So
okay, so I didn't confirm with anybody. Here's how I figured it out. Not as much. I didn't even see the paparazzi photos from the funeral or anything. But here's how I figured it out. The first person to do any interviews for the season was Brian Cox with Variety. That was like a big like, hey, we're gonna focus on Brian. And I was like, seems like really putting a lot of effort on Brian. And then they didn't send out the screeners. That was another tell. And then when they did, they sent out them for a review, and a lot of the reviews talked about nothing. And the Daily Beast one was like the most shocking twist of the season or something. You're never gonna, you will melt break.
Well, yeah, because I was like, Sarah
twist.
was like, they talk about the one take. I was like, well, that's the big, yeah. So
and then like I was like all that putting together, and then I was fully confirmed without having known and anybody when Brian Cox was a late ad, I believe, Friday afternoon to Monday's episode of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. They send around the guests, and they're like, coming on Monday, Brian Cox. And I was like, well, he's dead then. Because, like, clearly, like,
they do that all the time. Like,
why else would he be doing it?
We don't, well, I guess most shows don't, if they want a shocking death, like, but the postmortem, the late night talk show postmortem the next day,
yeah,
very popular. So
yes. So I was like, immediately like, oh, this is it. Like, he's gone, and they're going to kill him off in the episode. And I kept being like, how are they going to do it? And then they just did it like how exactly kind of like how I thought it would be, where it just is like off screen. And
that was
like,
great. I loved it so much because it's such a realistic portrait of, and they've talked about it too, Jesse and Mark Mylod, like how we receive news and how death is inconvenient and random and mundane. It's not like it's usually portrayed in TV or film where, you know, someone is dying a long death on a deathbed, or they get like a last speech, they get to talk to loved ones or whatever.
Right.
And it's like super dramatic with like swelling music. There was very little music in that entire sequence in the middle. So yeah, I loved it so much because it was just, you know, you just never know when's the last time you're going to see someone or talk to someone.
So I was thinking like when the last moment. So obviously the episode, the other reason why I think, and then this is a little in hindsight, but like it was clear that he was going to die this season, while not the specifics of the third episode like were locked in for me because of all the media stuff around it, right? Like the reviews and also like I said, like the Colbert thing. But obviously they've been like treading towards like that based on like every single thing Logan said throughout the first two episodes.
Yeah, we talked about it in the first episode. Like he actually addressed mortality for the first
So
time.
it's like clearly he's dead this season, and like they were just setting that up, like leading that down that road. But I was thinking like the last scenes he did, obviously with the kids, was that great scene in the karaoke bar, which is another tell because in the trailer that's presented like a big showdown moment, and it happens in the second episode. So I was like, oh man, well this is like the peak of the season basically for the whole family, and like it's in the second episode anyway. But I was like, oh, what were the last times he had individual scenes with like all the actors? So he had that last scene with Kieran, obviously, in second episode. But his last scene with Jeremy is really what? Like the dinner scene in the penultimate episode of
Chandrashire. Yeah.
Wow. Like that's crazy. I was just like, this is crazy. Like going back, like backtracking to like, oh man, what was his last individual scene with these people? I guess with Sarah Snook, was it had to be that same episode, or was it like when maybe the one before it? I'm trying to think. I couldn't think of hers.
In Chandish, I don't know if she had an individual scene with like she had scenes with him because they were in Italy.
The one I was thinking of was like it is when with Roman's dick pic is in that episode too, right?
Yeah, but that's like in I guess maybe when she goes up to him,
she has that like scene like in
like,
the
super brief, but
conference room basically where he kind of like calls her back, right? Like that was. So
or no, she checks in on him and then he calls Roman and then
right. So I was like, that maybe is like, it's just kind of crazy to think about it like that. I was like, oh man, that's like pretty wild. Like this is just like been the whole show is like him with these kids, and like their last scenes happened like last season basically.
Yeah, I mean like they have the group scenes obviously, but it's I think it was just because especially the way they did it with it off screen, and you know the confusion with everyone and the chaos and not knowing and just wanting answers, and it's so great because it was just like this is an instance where their wealth cannot save them from death or their pain. You know, it's like they are used to buying their way out of things, paying their way out of things, and you can't do that. Like death comes for us all and you can't control it. But anyway, I was thinking like when, you know, it was happening, I was like, it's great because when you look back at like the first two episodes, it kind of feels like almost you know, or like in the first episode when he was just missing that banter with his kids. Like he wanted his team to roast him, right? Because that's just how like that's what he likes. Like they just enjoy slinging insults at each other. Yes. And he missed that dynamic with his kids. And he was sad. And then, you know, in two, like he you know, apologizes, quote unquote, to them, and like it doesn't work out at all, and they're just like fuck off. And then he has that like, you know, really tragic like speech or whatever to Carrie about the homeless man on the street, and he's like, you know, look at him, like they can like him or whatever. And I think that kind of broke his heart because it was kind of like irreparable. Like he tried to kind of extend an olive branch or whatever you want to call it to them, and they said no. And you know, you hear about how, you know, these like old couples who've been married for like 60 years or whatever, if one of them dies, the other person dies soon after of heartbreak. And like not to be like maudlin or anything, but it's like it's kind of like heartbreak for him, like because they're not saying fuck off to each other. And like he's like missing that part of his life, and then he just dies.
Yeah, it's pretty. I found the whole thing. I feel like I don't think people. My take is a lot of people don't watch the show, right? Though I guess
no, I saw way too many takes and tweets of people being like, like I thought that was a joke. I was like, no, he would not. He's diabolical, but he would not joke this way. And the show is not like that at all.
There was part for sure that, and then also I just think like I don't know. I was like I think to me, like I know they're bad people, but the trick of the show is that you have empathy for a lot of these people in different ways, and I think a lot of people don't watch it with that in mind. So I think it's like you kind of lose something if you're not watching it with like the full amount of empathy. Logan is a very complicated character. I think you can feel bad for him and understand that he's actually does think he's doing the right thing with those kids, even if he doesn't do it. And I think
Yeah, because he can't stand how like because he built his empire, he worked for it, and they were obviously born into it. So he hates their entitlement, basically.
right that he
So
gave them.
yeah. And then but of course he's also, abused them in various ways. So it's like he's obviously problematic.
Yeah.
That's all.
Yeah. He's not a fave. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
Like, so that the other big thing this week was Joyce. Not a lot of news on this front, but just speculation that maybe we'll have a lot of these actors going lead, specifically Sarah Snook.
Well, that we've
about.
talked about before,
Yeah.
but I think there's like I think the bigger question mark is with Brian, like where because he could like theoretically go in 3 different categories.
I think Brian would go and lead, and I think he will sit there happily.
I would love it so much. That'd be such a good flex.
I don't think he would go in supporting. He's the lead. He's the whole show. He is the show.
Yes, yeah.
And so like he's the lead. And I think he could maybe not win, right? Like we were saying, like we've always wanted him to win. I think it would have been great to have him win for season 3 because he was so amazing. And I don't think he would win for 2 episodes, basically. And one thing like and one cold open in episode 3. But no, I think he'll go lead. I think Jeremy obviously is the lead, and I think he will continue to be like a serious contender. I don't think Kieran would go lead, but
no, because that was one of the
win.
options, I guess. Like they could do double lead with Jeremy and Kieran and bump Brian down to supporting, which back in the day was also floated as an option, especially in season 1 when he was debilitated at Logan. Yes. So it's like it felt like he was kind of supporting because like it was the season was kind of centered on Kendall,
right?
So it's like you could. They didn't get nominated for a season, so it doesn't matter. But you can also say the same about the second season too if you want to split them up, and obviously they didn't do that.
I kind of think Kieran could win now. In support.
Yeah, I've always felt like even just based on the first episode, I felt like he could, but then like this episode, I was like, yeah, he can definitely win.
Now, the Tom and Shiv relationship will obviously come back around, and there might be scenes later where Matthew is like kind of crushing it, but it just feels like so far. I
just feel like this episode is so pivotal.
Yes.
And I think when people are voting, just in general, they'll just think about this episode.
Right.
Even if it's not on the ballot specifically for something.
And then I think Sarah could go lead, and I think she could also win.
Yeah.
We
talked about this last week.
We did. And she'd be great. I will say, like, there's a great moment in the most recent episode of Yellow Jackets that Melanie Linsky had that I was like, oh, this is really good. And that was going viral already. And I was like, oh, and she's like really good on it. And like, I could obviously like would not count her out. But I do think Sarah would be like a very formidable.
I mean, even Melanie is standing Sarah. Did you see her Instagram post?
No, I only follow her on Twitter. I don't follow her on Instagram.
Yeah, she posted the shot of them hugging, which was an improv, as we now know. And then she wrote, just praising the episode, but she was like, but Sarah Snook specifically, she crushed it, whatever. And she's like, but she's been crushing it for 3 seasons. So, And then Sarah was the only person she tagged in the photo. I mean, Jeremy and Kieran are not, but she didn't tag like Succession or anything. That's what I mean. Yeah. Maybe if Sarah goes lead, Melanie would vote for her.
So if Sarah went lead, does that open? I really want to get Carrie in there. Chuckles the Clown. Zoe Winters, I just love. I think
Chuckles
she's
the Clown. Good. I think not.
Just the best, and she's so good. And only thing is,
wait, what did Tom say? She looked like she was catching a foul ball at Yankees Stadium.
I'll be curious to see how much she is in it the rest of the season, though. She might not be in it a lot, but she was.
I want more Colin. That the most heartbreaking shot was him just completely crestfallen on the tarmac.
really tough.
Yeah, when he sees that Logan is dead, that's his best pal. So I
Tough
want more
thing.
Colin. I think so. I was thinking about if Sarah went lead and Jennifer Coolidge stayed in supporting. If they go all in on Succession, could J. Smith Cameron somehow win supporting actress?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know. That would be ridiculous, don't you think?
I mean, to be fair, we don't know what material she has the remaining
So,
seven.
I mean, the first 2 episodes, she's not barely in at all. And I was
And
like,
then she gets
okay.
fired, but then it's undone, just like Frank's firing in the pilot
And in
because
incredible moments with, I thought in this
and that
episode. So
great
I was
hat.
like, yeah, I thought all of that was wonderful. So I was like, oh man, she's definitely going to get in, obviously. But I mean, like maybe she could win. It just feels like a really tough category. But you could have the top three all going lead, like we had talked about. And nobody has really reported otherwise. And they're still deciding
They
before
haven't
May 9th.
decided. They have
Yeah.
until May 9th to
Yeah.
submit the paperwork.
Yeah.
So I didn't do anything to drama actress. I just kept my triple yellow jackets. Like, I'm not thinking about this.
Well, I put Sarah in first to supporting. And I
Well,
have
you already had her in supporting.
I did. I mean, we can only predict her in supporting, but I had Jennifer Coolidge in first, and I moved up Sarah to first. I have done nothing with the same. I have double yellow jackets and Helen Mirren on mine, and Emma Darcy, who I know you don't have. So just a great category. It needs the juice. It needs the juice of these other
Yeah, and then
contenders.
but as we were talking about like last week, the lead likes heft, and Sarah would have the heft to win and lead.
Let me ask you this: is there a world where Sarah wins drama actress, and then neither Jeremy nor Brian win drama actor, and it does go to Bob Odenkirk?
No, I don't think Better Call Saul is winning anything. Like maybe it could win Bryan Cranston and guest.
So if Jeremy doesn't win, then who would win Best Actor in a drama right
Oh,
now?
you're saying if Jeremy doesn't win. I
Yeah,
don't I think he would win. But I don't
Bob is first in our odds because everybody's hope dicking him, I guess.
just like last year.
Yeah,
Um uh I mean, the internet would love Pedro to win.
yeah. I was laughing before because I was doing our picks for the MTV Movie Awards or whatever they're called now. You could do
Movie
that.
and TV.
You could do that now on our site. And I was like, Pedro's down as best hero. I'd have some notes about Joel being a
Sure.
hero. So not sure he qualifies completely. So I didn't pick him for best hero. I went with Wednesday.
But you have to think about what the kids will pick.
I know it's wrong, and I know it's not as nuanced as that. But yeah, I don't know. I was just like, he's not really a hero, kind of.
I mean, honestly, I have not thought about a non-Succession person winning drama actor because I don't think this is necessarily a situation like last year with Squid Game and Lee Jung-jae.
There's no Lee Jung-jae here. It doesn't seem.
And I think people want Pedro to be Lee Jung-jae, and sure, maybe he could be come July, but right now I don't think so.
I switched to Jeremy just because it felt like with Brian only 2 episodes, 3. I just think Jeremy's going to just kind of steamroll through dramaturgically. Joyce, I think it's going to be really good for him to have Logan off the board.
I that killed I hate Jeremy Strong Twitter is the worst Twitter there is because dramaturgically not a weird word.
No.
Any theater kid knows that word. Anyone who knows some English knows that word or has heard that word before. And the other thing that kills me is if any of like Twitter's favorite auteurs said that word, like Scorsese or someone, no one would care. It would just be like my hero, of course, go off. Right.
Go off, King.
Or if someone, if like an internet boyfriend like Pedro said that word, they wouldn't care either. To be like, oh my God, he used a word I didn't know. I had to look it up. He's so smart. I stand forever. Like that's what would have happened. If anyone from the cast, the Succession cast has said that word, like Brian Cox, Matthew McFadden have said that, no one would care. Just be like, Shakespearean actor, British actor, of course, he knows that word. If Sarah said it, it would just be like, I stand. She's so smart. Love her. Kieran would not say it. And if he did, he would just be like, oh, why did I say that?
Yeah.
But it's the person who said it. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's my rant about that. So
that's interesting. So we had one other email I could read if you want. It's about this one's from Harold and Maude, our favorite.
oh,
Anybody else could email us. It doesn't have to be just the Davids and Harold and Maude.
but then obviously these people are our faves because they email us all the time.
Obviously. You can email us at slugfest@goldderby.com. It's Harold and Maude. It's me again. It's a me, Harold and Maude. No, he just says it's me again. To pivot towards Emmy questions, I was wondering if you think Ayo Edebiri has a chance at making an upset win in comedy supporting actress. I think Jeremy Allen White will be the first one to finally beat Jason Sudeikis for The Bear, and maybe she can go along with that if the Guild success for the show is any indication. I also think The Bear will certainly win comedy directing, but maybe that's wishful thinking.
I mean, I want my guy Bill Hader to win comedy directing, but I don't think it's gonna happen.
Wow.
Barry's back this weekend. And it's so good. And I want it to win all the Emmys, but it won't. So, yeah, Sarah Goldberg should win, but I don't think she'll win. But Ayo, maybe. I think she has a tougher road than Jeremy does.
So looking at the landscape, we're going to have potentially 3 Abbott Elementary stars, including reigning champion Sheryl Lee Ralph. And then we have at least 2 Ted Lasso actresses, probably, in Juno Temple and Hannah Waddingham, plus Alex Borstein for Maisel, and then Ayo Edebiri, and then I have Jessica Williams for Shrinking, though your mileage may vary. Maybe you'll have Sarah Goldberg in there for Bear.
Obviously, I have Sarah Goldberg. She has so much good stuff this season. She has like one speech, I think it's in the 3rd episode. It's kind of like quote unquote mean, but it's a great monologue. And then in the back half, a lot of I can't talk about it, but it's really good. There's like one sequence, she's so good. I don't think she'll win though, but I just want her to get back in. I can honestly see Sheryl just winning again. I guess we could talk about tonight's episode since this will air on Thursday. So tonight's episode of Abbott, Taraji P. Henson drops by as Janine's mom. You haven't seen it yet.
No, you told me it's fine.
Yeah, so she's, her mom is just basically like a deadbeat mom, and she's trying to, pull some chicanery and get her daughter to pay for her phone bill because her phone's been turned off and it's like $600 or whatever. And she doesn't explicitly ask Janine to do it, but then everyone like Melissa and Barbara, knows, what she's up to. So Barbara also knows that Janine is going on this weekend trip by herself and she needs the money. So she talks to Taraji about it and she offers to pay the bill for Taraji. So it's like this whole thing. And it's just like, it's a great moment for her too. But like, I feel like every week I watch an episode of Abbott, I'm like, this is just like another great day for Sheryl Lee Ralph. And it's the same thing with this episode.
I kind of like, so I have Hannah Waddingham at first, and I think she has also continued to have great stuff in Ted, including the most recent episode that aired this week. That I guess is out today. We're recording on Wednesday. But yeah, I could see Sheryl winning too. I easily. Like, it just seems like I kind of was like, did they just go back to Hannah, or is Sheryl just going to be like, check her off because we already gave her one last year and no reason not to anymore?
Yeah, like Hannah could not do the back-to-back because they have like back-to-back winners here in recent years, but Hannah couldn't do it. So I don't know. I honestly, I'm just like they could just give it to Sheryl again. Like, it's,
I think they would, and I don't think
it's both funny and like she excels at like all the drama stuff too. And then there's also a lot of depth and growth to her character this season too.
I also think outside, I mean, like, so I think the funniest 2 performers are Janelle James and Lisanne Walter, and they're killing it. Lisanne Walter is my fave for this season, I would say. She's so funny.
So I want her to get in. I have all 3 of them in.
I have all 3 of them in too. I think she'll get in. But I think Sheryl is clearly like the best actor of the whole cast, and like is like able to balance the comedy with like the light drama that they're given sprinkled throughout, and I think that'll help have her win. I don't know. I think Edebiri is great on The Bear, but it feels
also
like
great on Abbott.
She's also great on Abbott and could win Abbott for guest actress in a comedy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think I could win on The Bear.
Yeah, I think there's just kind of too much competition in her category, whereas I feel Jeremy just really have to beat Jason.
The other thing, Io reminds me of like a little bit of like Hannah Einbinder for Hacks, where it's like getting her in is the great thing, and it's a great nomination, but not going to win.
Yeah, I can see that, where like the lead just has all the steam.
Yeah, and I do think Jeremy could win, especially when the Bear. I mean, like we'll see how the second season of the Bear goes, and if Io is like exploding in the second season of the Bear, then maybe
You
like
could
we
pull a
rewrite
Brett
this. Kind
Goldstein.
of, right? You could imagine that. I think that is actually how Jeremy would win. I still have I have Jason Sudeikis in first, but I have Jeremy obviously in second, and I can see him like once people are reminded that they love the Bear when the second season comes back and they're voting, then I think he could easily win, basically, because he's like so good on it.
Yeah, and it'll also depend on how Ted wraps up the series or just slash the season.
Yeah, that's the other reason why I'm like kind of like still on Hannah, because I'm like it just seems like they're going like a lot of places with her character, obviously. And so like I'm kind of like
I mean, I haven't
it.
watched today's episode, but I was talking this morning to someone who did, who was not feeling it. Because it was also very long. It was 50 minutes, but they felt like the show is focusing on the wrong characters, and like like they said, like, you know, Hannah and Brett, and like, you know, the people we're familiar with, like they're still great, but they're obviously, as we've talked about, they're sidelining Juno. Um, and like she has not had a lot of stuff to do.
She
And
finally gets stuff this episode.
but think like my friend didn't like it.
I mean, I guess your mileage.
It was like that was just like not great, that whole storyline. So maybe like now that that's been done away with, they'll have different stuff for Juno. But she just felt like they're focusing on the wrong um characters and the wrong storylines, and there's like no real momentum so far, even though it feels like they've set a lot of things up. um and but they like fill the time with just superfluous stuff.
I mean, that's definitely the negative take on it. I think all that stuff is good. So I like it. Like, I do think, like, that's not wrong, but I'm like, I'm enjoying it. I just like hanging out with the characters, and they're just giving everybody so much time. Their episodes are so long.
Yeah, I think that's like one of her issues, is like she likes hanging out with the characters, but now they're like kind of pushing it with the length of the episodes, and then just the stuff that they're giving them is not quite up to par. So
I definitely feel like that I would agree with that with the Juno Temple so far. It just feels like kind of shoehorned in a little. It was easier to keep her in the narrative. Like the problem
when
is,
she was dating Roy.
well, she was obviously dating Roy and Brett, and then also like worked in the building, it seemed like, right? Or whatever. So it was like, it just like ended up being a lot more organic to it. It kind of reminds me of like Mad Men a little bit, when they're like, remember when like Peggy was like in another, you know what I mean? When they're just like not all together in the same place. And it's just this like, why, like we're in just different, like it's hard to keep the core of the relationships together when these people are in different jobs.
Right, but I guess
Spots.
you can also come up with a better storyline for her. That's the thing.
I don't mind the storyline. It just feels like it hasn't really done it. They've just kind of like thrown it in here now. I mean, we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, like there has to be some more with her and Roy, like just based on closure for the relationship. I don't mind that they're giving her like another relationship, but it just seems like a little out of nowhere.
Yeah. So I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it, so like I have no take on it. But I mean, maybe it kind of feels like, you know, they wrote themselves into a corner with the breakup. And then it's like they're not ready to go back there yet, to address her and Roy. So they have to come up with this other stuff in the meantime.
It kind of reminds me in a different way of another show, Watch Screeners, that we could just talk about briefly, I think, right? It was Mrs. Maisel, Joyce.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched those.
Let me see if the screeners, I want to just see when the
I think the embargo's up, right?
Features embargoed until April 5th at 8, and reviews embargoed on April 12th. So
that's
great.
today.
We're fine. So speaking writing into corners, the last season, this is the last
We have two comedies returning this weekend with their last seasons, Barry and Maisel.
So Maisel final season comes back. Last season ended with Midge and Lenny Bruce having finally consummating their relationship.
Yes, I know.
And Joel and his new girlfriend, fiance May, I believe is her name, were having a baby. And those two plot are immediately dispensed of seemingly in the first episode when it comes back. And to my delight, because I was just like, let's just go ahead. We don't need, like, they kind of just like went like this. Like, oh, we wrote ourselves into a bit of a corner and we'll just write ourselves out and move on. So
I mean, sure.
So I found that like really so that Ted Lasso did not do that. They could have done that by like the thing is like the last season ended with Roy and Keely kind of maybe breaking up, but not totally. Like you could see like them taking a break. And then like this season, like kind of going into like their relationship a little more. They went the other direction and were like, we're just gonna actually follow through on what we did. And maybe that was not the best for those characters, unless you're gonna not really have Keely on the show as much.
When did she start filming Fargo?
I don't know.
But I feel like they filmed the bulk of the third season before Fargo.
Because
So,
it's
or
just
was she
this
doing
like
the offer? No, that wouldn't have overlapped, right? I don't think
I
so.
don't know because I'm just like no, she was doing Ted season. She was doing Ted during the offer because I remember I interviewed her for the offer. Joyce loved Juno Temple. She was lovely, and she
Right.
was doing
So
Ted.
yeah, because they basically spent all of last year filming Ted,
Yes,
like all those
and
delays. So
it just feels like again I've only seen the up to this week. I think they sent out that many screeners, so I don't know if they've sent out the rest of the season yet or whatever. I haven't looked. So 5 of 12 episodes it is that right? Like it's a lot of episodes.
yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's a lot.
So again, it's hard. Like I don't like to like. I'm not gonna like give proclamations on. I'm not gonna give proclamations on like how that's gonna play out without having seen it. That said, it does feel like there's not as much for her to do, and maybe like there wasn't as much. Like it's a case where you don't want to obviously Keely and Juno are so much a part of Ted Lasso in the first 2 seasons and are a great character. You kind of want to like not get rid of that character, but also you kind of like have hit a wall with them. And so you're just kind of keeping them around to try to fill stuff in until you bring them back a little. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, I don't think like her current storyline is a bad idea or anything. I think it's just like the way it's been written so far. So, yeah, so I again, I don't know what's gonna happen in the remaining
But
episodes.
I don't. So like we kind of went off on a long tangent here with Keely. But my thing was with Rebecca. I actually like the Rebecca stuff, and I think it's giving Hannah Waddingham like a lot of material that she hasn't had to play yet on the show this season. Whether or not you like the idea of like her kind of figure like the main arc is like she went to a psychic who is like basically like you should like about her relationship and having children and all these different things, and then now she's kind of like what if I do want to do that, or like how is it going to be, and like also like her relationship with Sam, like all these kind of things are percolating on that plot strand, and I'm like it's stuff she hasn't really had to do before, and I just like love her as an actor, and I think she's like really good.
Yeah, I don't think anyone has a problem with the performances. It's like the storylines and the plot and the pacing. So,
I gotta say I do like the pacing. It's what I fall asleep watching everything. Joyce, I was watching what was I watching? Another comedy show that I actually liked, and I fell asleep in more than half of the episodes. Just fully fell asleep and had to wake up and be like, I gotta run this back.
I have not done that, but
Oh, that's what.
there are like a lot of things where I'm just like I need to check out because this is like even if the episode's like 45 minutes, which is fine, but if the pacing is just bad, like I'm like this is taking me forever to finish. Whereas like I'm watching, Barry, it's 30 minutes and so much shit happens and I'm like I can't believe this is a 30-minute episode and it never feels too long or too short. Succession too, like their episodes are 60 minutes.
I mean, they
And
feel
I
60
never
minutes.
feel like it's too long or too short. I'm like, this is great.
Succession feels like 60 minutes, but also like I'm not ever not riveted by it. And Ted, I feel like the same. I'm like Wayne. I just like watching it. I think it's very watchable, and I do pay attention to it.
Ted, I
And
do
I'm not
feel
on my
like
phone.
it strains the lengths too much for me. Like they could easily cut like 10 15 minutes from each episode, and
Right.
it would just be like a lot tighter, and it would be, I think like that's the thing too, because it's leaning more into the dramatic stuff, or it has been since season 2, and I feel like that's why they're extending it. But you can have 30-minute dramas, guys. Like
Right. I mean, like
totally
that's
doable.
definitely. I would say that's also like if you read a lot of. I've read a lot of Bill Lawrence interviews for Shrinking Joyce, one of my faves. Love the show, and
Another
he
30-minute show.
a
So
30-minute show, and he was basically like, the first season was him and Jason together, but his philosophy is basically to like, this is Jason's show, and it's like what he wants, and like Shrinking is more like Bill Lawrence's show basically for what he wants. So Bill Lawrence is still like involved in, I guess, watching cuts and stuff of Ted Lasso, but not nearly as involved in the third season as he was in the first season. And so like this is like clearly like the way Jason kind of wanted the show to be.
yeah, which is fine. Like this is what he wants. Like this is 3-season plan, but I do feel like it's kind of losing um or it's like kind of strayed from what it was like originally, or maybe this was always his goal, but I think a lot of the charm and kind of just the comedic stuff of the first season um is missing with the length of some of these episodes.
Yeah.
And then I think part of it too is just like the disparate storylines this season too,
Right.
like all over the place. So
Uh,
that was our TED segment.
I still like it though. I guess that's it. I got nothing else here. There's no other emails, no other stuff to talk about. I saw Super Mario Brothers. Loved it. Great
I
movie.
have not seen that yet, because the children I would go with are out of the country at the moment.
I went with my daughter. She loved it. First movie she sat through in the theater the whole time, basically. Because we
Um,
walked out of Lightyear, obviously, last year. That was a
yes, we know.
walkout. Uh,
Does she think this will win the Oscar?
she might. I don't know if it'll get. I could see it getting nominated. I actually thought it was. Critics always baffle me, Joyce, because they're just so try hard, and
Because
everybody
it's
is
just like it's just total snobs. Just
just
enjoy something.
just piling on it. It's a totally stupid kids movie, I mean, like
Yeah.
it was, my kid liked it. She was having fun, and there's enough like jokes and material in there that I was like, haha, I understand that reference.
I would totally love it. I'm just
There's a
like,
lot of
I love Super Mario.
you'd
So
love also the music cues. There's a lot of like fun music cues for like
well,
grown-ups.
Brian Tyler did the music.
Well, also I mean like the needle drops.
Oh yeah. Just like Beef.
Yeah, not as good as Beef, but like there's like, Beastie Boys and like,
Just
ELO.
like the Marvels trailer. So
Yeah. You remember the Marvel's trailer? That was great. That looks like a great show.
Freaky Friday, but Marvel. So
One of the things I was trying to figure out, you tell me if you knew this just based on this or you're Googling, is the Captain Marvel that we're seeing get zoomed into that movie from the 90s? Is it time traveling too? What did you think? Because Brie Larson has
yeah, but she looks too modern, I feel like.
yeah, but I feel like in the present timeline, doesn't she have like the shorter hair? Or when did she have that?
That was in Endgame. So Endgame is this year, basically 2023. Jesus Christ, we're so old. 5 years. But like, yeah, I feel like I mean, we don't know like where it is in the timeline since Endgame.
Right.
So,
Okay.
because obviously it's after the show, Miss Marvel.
Yeah. So I was like, all that stuff is obviously present day Marvel. But then I was like, is the Captain Marvel coming into her body from the past?
From 95.
I was like, maybe. I honestly could see that. Like, that would be pretty wild. Because it would like,
but Monica is an adult, so I don't know.
well, Monica being adult, but maybe the heart, like for some reason, the Captain Marvel connection is across space and time. I don't know. I have no idea. But I was just like, her hair kind of threw me off because she looks like she does in Captain Marvel.
Yeah, I don't know.
I guess we'll find out when in 6 months we get the screening invite for that.
Yeah.
Just this was so much fun. I guess we'll do more. What do you want to do next week? We could do comedy, I guess. More comedy. Barry will be back.
Yes, 2 episodes.
So we can do comedy the next week.
Okay. How do we get Bill Hader the directing Emmy?
That we got a week to figure that out, Joyce. So that's our homework. All right. I'll talk to you later. Bye.